Have you ever heard someone described as Black Irish? The term conjures up images of Irish people with an exotic hint of Spanish or Mediterranean ancestry. Yet it's a phrase loaded with mystery, myth and ambiguity. So in this video we'll uncover the truth about the Black Irish story, exploring where the term comes from, the legends associated with it, and what modern DNA science says about Irish ancestry as it pertains to the Black Irish. Now, the way people describe the Black Irish does depend slightly on the source. In general, however, it describes Irish people that have darker features that you would normally associate with Ireland. These are more Mediterranean or Spanish looking features, darker than the typical image of Irish people with fair skin, red or light hair, and light eyes. And the combination of the Spanish looking ancestry and more typical Irish phenotypes often creates interesting combinations. The most common look people refer to as being Black Irish is someone with jet black hair, or very dark hair at least, and piercing blue eyes, although some describe people with dark eyes as well. But for the purposes of this video, and how many people describe it today, I will define the Black Irish look as someone with extremely dark hair and vivid blue eyes. But where does this story come from? How does it relate to Spanish ancestry and even some Scottish clans? And what does DNA research say about it all? And please let me know in the comments below if you have this combination of features, extremely dark hair and light eyes, blue eyes, and if you've got any stories of the Black Irish in your family history. Now, as far as the origin story of the Black Irish, it's actually quite murky, with various explanations for it. It also seems that it became more common among the Irish diaspora as well, as opposed to in Ireland itself. Yet one legend relates to the Milesians, said to be one of the main ancestors of the Irish. They are said to come from Iberia and therefore link Ireland's origins to Spain, which is actually a very common association in both Ireland and Scotland in many of their origin stories. And this story later fed into ideas about the Black Irish, with some claiming that Ireland's dark-haired people were descended from Spanish settlers. There are also many other theories and potential uses of the term Black Irish though, including relating to the Great Hunger in the 19th century, and also as a derogatory term for people of Irish descent abroad at times down through history. There are various other meanings as well. Yet the most common story of the Black Irish in the context of this video refers to survivors of the Spanish Armada in the 16th century. Now in 1588, ships of the Spanish Armada were wrecked off the Irish and Scottish coasts. The story goes that surviving Spanish sailors supposedly intermarried with the locals, introducing dark hair, darker eyes like hazel, and olive skin into the Irish population. It's somewhat of a romantic tale, Spanish blood and Irish veins, which is said to have created interesting combinations of features such as very dark hair and piercing blue eyes. Now the general view from historians is there is little evidence for this. According to this interpretation, only a small amount of the Armada survivors washed up in Ireland, most of whom were captured or killed. Therefore, hardly any would have started families. So this is the common view of historians that it's basically a myth. But is this true? Well, in general, I tend to believe that a lot of the mythical stories that different peoples have often have small seeds of truth in them. But could this be true for the Black Irish? Well, we do know that many ships were wrecked off the coast of Scotland and Ireland, mainly Ireland but also Scotland as well, around the Hebrides, as you can see in this map. And this is partly fed into many stories around Scotland and Ireland of ancient Spanish ancestry. And many of these stories are actually found in somewhat unexpected places. Now, I actually came across a story of the Spanish in a Scottish island just this summer that involved the Armada, an epic clan castle, and Scottish clan feuds. Yet quickly, for anyone not that familiar, the Spanish Armada was a massive fleet sent by King Philip II of Spain in 1588 to invade England and overthrow Queen Elizabeth I. Comprising around 130 ships, the Armada sailed up the English Channel but was met by smaller, more manoeuvrable English vessels and faced poor weather. The Armada was forced to retreat and was then battered by fierce storms in the North Atlantic. As someone that's Scottish, this doesn't surprise me given the weather we have here. Anyway, many ships were wrecked off the coast of Ireland and Scotland, as this table shows, where survivors often faced capture or death. And of the around 27,000 men that left Spain, only around half made it back, although estimates do vary. Now just this summer, me and my dad took a trip to Mull and Iona, islands in the Hebrides just on the west coast of Scotland, just north of Ireland. And it was stunning by the way, and please let me know in the comments below if you've been to either. But anyway, one day we decided to go to a castle known as Duart Castle, which was the ancestral home of Clan Maclean. It's a beautiful location on the water, and some films have actually been shot there, including Entrapment that you may have saw, starring Sean Connery and Catherine Zeta-Jones. Anyway though, we were wandering around the castle looking at the clan history and the kitchen etc, as you do in these places, when we came across the dungeons and rec room. And this is the scene from that area of the castle, showing an injured Spanish sailor in the depths of Duart Castle. Yet how did they get there? Well, on the 23rd of September 1588, the Spanish galleon San Juan de Cilia anchored in Tobermory Bay on the Isle of Mull, which was one of the 130 ships that formed the Spanish Armada. It is recorded as having 279 Spanish troops on board and a crew of 62. The crew were short of water and supplies however, and the ship's senior officer struck a deal with the local chieftain, Lachlan Maclean, the 14th chief of Clan Maclean. The agreement was that the ship would be replenished if Spanish troops were used to settle some of Maclean's outstanding feuds with nearby clans, mainly the MacDonald clan. Now at this time, Clan Maclean was in a feud with the MacDonald clan over the sea route to Ulster that ran from Argyll. Now for over a month, the Spaniards are said to have supported Maclean, ravaging the lands of his rivals, including the MacDonalds of Clan Ranald on the islands of Rum and Egg. They even joined Maclean in a 3-day siege of Mangary Castle, though he was eventually forced to retreat. Then, on the 5th of November 1588, the San Juan ship suddenly exploded in Tobermory Bay, killing most of the crew and 5 hostages given by Maclean. The cause was officially linked to a gunpowder accident, yet rumours have remained to this day as to who the real culprit was. The ship was also said to have had Spanish treasure on board, which inspired centuries of searching. Yet the few survivors were kept by him for a time before being sent back to Spain. Now this is a story that certainly has some myths imbued in it, but we certainly know some of the core elements were true. Chiefly that the Grand Spanish Armada ship did anchor at Tobermory Bay, and it does seem that the Spaniards struck some sort of deal with Maclean, perhaps supporting him in his feuds, and then the ship exploded. And this goes to show just how many stories there are around the Hebrides and Ireland about this link with the Spanish Armada. Some even tell tales of marriages between stranded Spaniards and island women, which left behind traces of Mediterranean features in later generations. And let me know in the comments below if you think this latter part could be true, and I'll tell you my thoughts later. But what does the genetic evidence say about all this? And is there this link between Spain and Ireland in the ancient DNA? Well, in general, the foundational DNA of Irish people, Scottish people, and Western Europeans in general is a mixture of 3 main sources: Western hunter-gatherers, early European farmers, and then steppe ancestry. And we have a decent idea of how these people looked. Now we know that Western hunter-gatherers mainly had blue eyes and dark brown hair. We also know that early European farmers were originally from Anatolia. They largely had dark brown hair, and some even black, along with darker eyes like brown for the most part. And if you look at this reconstruction, this is not to be how the average Yamnaya man looked, tended to look on average at least, with brown hair and brown eyes for the most part, although they probably carried some lighter alleles in their DNA to some degree as well. These Yamnaya steppe people were originally from the region around modern Ukraine, just north of the Black Sea for reference, before massive migrations across Europe. Yet people connected to the Yamnaya, such as the Bell-Beakers, tended to have lighter alleles in general, probably due to the fact that they were a mix of this Yamnaya steppe ancestry and also the previous peoples of Europe, and we've seen obviously that Western hunter-gatherers had strong blue-eyed genes. I should also note as well, at this point, that the origin of the Bell-Beakers was potentially in Iberia, and they are at least connected to this region. Early examples of the maritime bell-beaker design have been found in Portugal, for example, and this could be one explanation for this persistent link with Spain and Iberia and the origins of Ireland and also Scotland. As we do know from DNA research that the likely vector for the spread of steppe ancestry into both Scotland and Ireland was the bell-beakers. And we also know that the Y-DNA haplogroups changed dramatically in both countries because of them, who are dominated by R1b L21 today, the same marker in many Bell-Beaker men. So this is all to say that when we look at the ancient genetics of both Ireland and Scotland, this combination of very dark hair and piercing blue eyes isn't really that surprising at all. And we know that Irish people tend to have slightly more steppe ancestry and hunter-gatherer ancestry than say English people, something I've noted in a previous video. I also compared Scottish and English DNA in another video. Now this slight difference in the combination of these three sources would have produced slightly different allele frequencies in the different populations, basically in traits like eye colour and hair colour. We also know that the Irish had a notable impact from Norwegian Vikings. Lighter eyes were very common amongst them, and they also had a range of hair colours, from blonde to brown. Danish Vikings in particular were known to have especially dark hair, I should note. Although these Vikings had more of an impact on England than Ireland, something major studies have found. As an interesting side note, the surname Doyle is thought to come from an Irish name that meant black stranger or dark foreigner. This was used as a byname for Scandinavians in particular to distinguish the dark-haired Danes from fair-haired Norwegians. And a massive academic study that looked at the DNA of the Viking age did actually find that Danish Vikings had darker hair on average than Norwegian or Swedish Vikings, perhaps due to some more southern European ancestry in ancient Denmark. But it's quite incredible that the Irish picked up on this at the time of the Viking age, although some do argue it could have had a less literal meaning. But is there a Spanish component in Irish DNA? Well, I should note that there is a French-like component in Irish people. A fascinating study from 2017, published in Scientific Reports, mapped the Irish DNA atlas, and they found that there is high levels of northwest French-like ancestry in Ireland. And they didn't think this is a Norman signal, if you were wondering, but rather an ancient Celtic one, or perhaps even older. This study also found this Norwegian-like ancestry in Ireland once again, due to the Viking influence. Yet, this study found no major Spanish-like ancestry in Ireland, and other studies have found similar results. So in other words, there is no notable inflow of Spanish DNA around the time of the Armada that has been detected in Irish people. Now I should note that the results from an older study from 2009 indicated that the Irish, especially those in western counties, have their closest genetic relatives in northern Iberia, in Galicia and the Basque region. Yet the authors interpreted this as evidence that Ireland was originally settled by people migrating by boat from Iberia after the last ice age, thousands of years before the Spanish Armada. So is the Black Irish Armada story simply a myth? Well, on a national level, probably yes, as any Spanish genes wouldn't have affected the Irish gene pool in any major way. But that's not to say that there couldn't have been very isolated cases. The story from Mull suggests that some Spaniards got involved in clan feuds during this time, in a way you wouldn't immediately think of. Who's to say some Spanish men never got involved with local women in Ireland and the Hebrides? Yet once again, this wouldn't be enough to affect the overall gene pool in a major way. And when we look at the genetic evidence, this combination of very dark hair and piercing blue eyes isn't really surprising in Ireland or Scotland. As despite what some may think, if you imagine what a typical Irish or Scottish person looks like, maybe similar to myself to be honest, this combination of dark hair and piercing blue eyes is very old in these lands. The first two peoples to mix were Western hunter-gatherers and early European farmers, with the latter bringing genetics from the region around modern Turkey and the Middle East. So these more exotic features actually go way back to around 6,000 years ago or so, when the first farmers arrived, and we don't need 16th century Spanish sailors to explain it. If you look at this table of hair colour estimates in Ireland, you can see how common dark hair is. Now I should note that this is just an estimate, and it's hard to get really accurate numbers on this, but this is the general breakdown. And if you look at this table of eye colour breakdown in Ireland, blue eyes are very common obviously in Ireland. Yet again, who's to say there wasn't some rare cases of lost Spaniards mixing with local women? And let's face it, it's a very good story. And I don't know about you, but there's something about the grand ships around the time of the Armada that have a romantic and nostalgic quality. We also know that the Irish have been somewhat genetically isolated since the Bronze Age, perhaps giving room for factors like genetic drift to influence traits. The environment and climate of Ireland also likely acted as a selective pressure over the years as well, which most likely influenced traits as well. And this link between the bell beakers and Iberia may be one reason why there are so many origin stories that link back to Spain in Scottish and Irish legends, as they did profoundly affect the ancient DNA in both countries up until today, with most Scottish and Irish males carrying R1b L21 lineages. But what do you think? Please let me know in the comments below, and if you have any stories of the Black Irish in your family history. But to find out more about Irish DNA and how it differs from English DNA, please click here. Thanks for watching, please subscribe and hit the bell, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.